Atomic Blonde is directed by David Leitch and stars Charlize Theron, James McAvoy, John Goodman, and Toby Jones. This story surrounds Charlize Theron's character, Lorraine, who is working for MI6 in order to find a list of agents. This list that contains double agents that are trying to sneak their way into the West during the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Now, a little backstory. Now, this film was directed by David Leitch, who, if you remember, was one of the directors of 2014's John Wick, which I really enjoyed, and I consider it one of the best films of 2014. And I was really looking forward to this because it seems like with this type of film, it seems like we're seeing this trend now that ever since John Wick's come out, that we're starting to see a lot more of like these action films that are trying to grant more of that are trying to build more of that style surrounding like John Wick did, where you can take a regular action movie but kind of make it feel very like pulpy, so to speak, to kind of give it like a very give it more of an energetic feel to it. And that's what it seemed like from the trailers this film and the film itself was doing. And it got me really interested because I'm such a big fan of Charlize Theron that ever since I've seen her in a lot of action films, especially Mad Max Fury Road and things like that, I've always wanted to see her in more action movies coming out, and I really think that she has the potential to, you know, show a lot of the physicality and the way that she is committed to these type of roles. And in a way, she basically is the modern day Keanu Reeves of action movies, because I saw like behind the scenes of this movie, and she did quite a lot of training for this movie, and I was actually quite surprised. And it got me really interested because I've always been a fan of her movies, like in the past as well, and seeing her in more action films has got me a lot more hyped up. So I will say that I was definitely hyped going into this movie, and it was also great. I was also looking forward to it too because the way that the film is trying to have like a soundtrack kind of kick to it, like John Wick did in other films that are trying to build more of the, like, you know, kind of basically using the music, so to speak, to give the movie like an edge to it, like to give it a very unique style. So with this movie, I can honestly say that I like it, but it is definitely flawed to an extent. So here are my pros. I love the performances in this film, especially Charlize Theron. She is in top notch. She's very, very like physical in this movie. Like, you see her doing a lot of really badass fight scenes and shootouts and there's actually sequences where, you know, she really gets fucking damaged through hell, and you really see the brutality that she goes through. And it is so packed. When she really packs a punch when she's going through all these fight scenes. And not just that, but I also got into her character as well, because in a way she is very mysterious in a lot of scenes, and you don't really get like a lot of backstory involved with her, so you are kind of like thinking in your head like what some of her background is, so to speak, when you're watching it throughout. And there actually is something very interesting that I found in the film to her character that I won't reveal, but it really actually made me, you know, it actually kind of threw me off when I watched. I was like, oh, okay. And I also enjoyed James McAvoy's performance too. Ever since I've seen him in Split and the X-Men movies and everything, it shows that he's really committed to a lot of these pretty much any role that he takes. And with this film, he's basically playing the smartass he's playing a smartass next to Charlize Theron's character by having to help her go find the list of agents and everything, and he tags along. And I enjoyed their banter back and forth. They had me cracking up in a lot of scenes. So I really found their chemistry really genuine. And it was also great seeing John Goodman in the movie too. You know, it seems like this year that John Goodman has like officially come back into doing more like action movies and more basically anything that he can pretty much find nowadays. You know, ever since this year, he's done like, you know, he's done Patriots Day in Kong Skull Island, and so it's basically this is the year for him to come back into doing more mainstream roles. So it's great that he's, you know, doing more of that nowadays. And one of the biggest praises I have for the film for the most is the action sequences and the fight scenes are all choreographed very well done. Now, this is the same director that did John Wick, and also in that film did a lot of like very wide shots where you can see pretty much everything that's going on with the action, and they do keep that to a T here because you can pretty much see everything that's happening at once. And and this is a good comparison, there's actually a scene where, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's a scene where Charlize Theron is going through a whole hallway of these people in this building, like she's going up the stairs and everything, and this entire sequence is shot in one take. It's almost seemed like it's shot in one take, similar to Children of Men, which I thought was pretty intense and very it was very fucking brutal. So I really got a kick out of that, and I love the way that the shootouts were handled well, and the way that, you know, a lot of the fight scenes took place, because it really shows a lot of the vulnerability with the character, and you can see through the damage that she goes throughout. So I highly enjoyed the way that it was stylized too, with the way that it was shot with these one takes. And another great page I enjoyed was the music surrounding this. Now, what threw me off was I didn't know this film was taking place in the 80s, and so it actually got me surprised that this film takes place in 1989, and they're using popular songs that are, you know, of that era, including David Bowie's the Putting Out the Fire, that's from that movie Cat People, and you also get to hear I Ran by the Flock of Seagulls. So the movie does have quite a great, you know, style to it by adding these type of songs into the scenes, and they go well with the action that's happening. In fact, a lot of the time the characters, including Theron's character herself, are playing the music, and they actually go along with the sequences as well. So I did get a kick out of that. And I also really enjoyed the score too. Like, the score, in a way, it kind of sounds like the score from John Wick, but also, in a way, it also kind of sounds remarkably like the Dust Brothers music from Fight Club. And I mean that in a good way, because it has like this really kind of like synth pop to it that's really unique, and it gives the movie a very good vibe to it. Another thing I really enjoyed too was the cinematography in this film is very brilliant. Like, in a way, the film has like a lot of shots in this film that are reminiscent of more like with the first John Wick and John Wick Part 2, or Chapter 2, where you see like a lot of red and blue colors that are in like these interior shots, where you see Charlize Theron's character in her apartment or in her safe house where she's at, and it's very beautiful the way that it looks, especially when you see like the very neon colors that are surrounding the pit around the area. So I really enjoyed the way that the cinematography looked. Now, I will say though that there are some cons in this movie that I did kind of have that threw me off. For one, I will say that the pace in this film was pretty slow. There are moments where a lot of the characters are taking a lot of the time out, where they're having to basically recap events from earlier, or they're having to, you know, sometimes you see Theron's character go back to her apartment and everything, and she's having to, you know, listen to the audio tapes, because she's basically trying to she's using a wire to basically listen to characters throughout the movie to kind of get information. And a lot of the time it kind of got me, it felt like the pacing was really off in that regard, because we would see a lot of these sequences where they would be kind of rinse and repeat, and I was kind of bored by that. So yeah, the pacing did drag in a lot of parts. They could have really just made it a lot more faster in that regard. And another thing too that I did notice was that the story itself, while I was getting into it, I did feel like it was very simplistic, or it was very standard, because I mean the movie just feels like any other action film if you break down the plot itself. Only they're adding more of its own style to it to kind of deviate it from other films. So in a way, it kind of really just looks like any other generic film that you would probably see that would be released around this time. And so yeah, I would say that the story wasn't really something that I was going like blown away by, but I was still following it as it went along, because unlike say something like John Wick or some other action films that are having to resolve on espionage and things like that, this one just felt like it pretty much was taking all those films and basically doing something a little different by adding its like you know, neon colors and everything, and you know, its soundtrack. Well, and another con I had too was that the film is trying to set up like these different twists that are going along, and a couple of them, one of them was very surprising the way it was handled, but throughout the entire film, I did feel like there was a lot of things that I already called that were happening, and you kind of get like you pretty much already get that when you're watching the trailer. So yeah, there was a lot of sequences in this movie that I pretty much already called as it went along, and it didn't really make me feel for anything. But with that being said, I do enjoy the film, but it is definitely flawed. And even though I did get a kick out of it, but I will say that on a story perspective, it probably could have been a lot better. But I really do feel like this is probably something that I would definitely check out, and I would probably own when it comes out. So with that being said, I'm going to give Atomic Blonde a 7 out of 10. For those of you who have also seen Atomic Blonde, what did you think of it? Comment below, and if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to my channel, and check out some of my other reviews as well. And I'll be seeing you in my next one. I'll see you later.